Hello and welcome back to Seagulls Central. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Coming back to the channel, if you're new here, welcome along. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's so good to have you. Today, we're going to be reacting to Brighton's first few days of pre-season training. We're back. The 2025-2026 season is underway. It is formally underway. The players are back. Training has begun. We're seeing the new players. We're seeing the new training kit. We're seeing old players come back. We're seeing the squad begin to take shape as we prepare for a massive, massive season in the Premier League next season. As always, if you haven't already, please just hit the subscribe button. It really, really helps me out. As I've said before, 73% of people who watch this channel are watching it as non-subscribers. And honestly, if you could just do one movement of your finger and hit the button, it would help me out so much. I mean that I can get regular videos up here, continue to create the best, the fastest, the most in-depth, the best community in the Brighton scene. It will mean a lot to me, and hopefully you will get great value out of it as well. So what I want to do in this video is essentially react to what we've seen in the clips, in the videos, in the conversation, in the articles written around these first few days of pre-season training. Obviously, the players reported to training on Friday. They had those initial kind of medical testing, the strength and conditioning testing. Over the weekend, we've seen them obviously undergo training on the grass. And obviously today, Monday, we've seen even more of the kind of training underway. We know they're going out to, I think it was Spain, for a warm weather training camp. I am going to correct myself here if I'm wrong, because there's a part of me thinks it's Austria, but I'm pretty sure they're going to Spain in the next kind of couple of weeks. We're obviously waiting for the internationals to report back. Lots of players who, even just at under 21 level, you think of Jack Hinshelwood, Coppola, Rutter playing in the under 21s Euros, but also players who actually play for their international sides towards, probably like the back end of May. They haven't reported, but we've seen a good chunk of players report for pre-season training. And there's a lot to get into. There's a lot of interesting photos we've seen. And let's get straight into it. So first of all, I want to talk about Ferdy Kadioglu. So we've seen him back in pre-season training. Photos were first released of him on Friday, of him in the gym. And I think it's a really interesting one. And I wanted to talk about him as the first one because I think his is a bit of an interesting predicament this pre-season. I think he's got a lot to prove this pre-season, Ferdy Kadioglu. Obviously, we brought him in towards the end of the window, the summer window, this time last year, with a big money move behind him, with a massive reputation, a massive following as well. He's got a huge social media following, some fantastic stats out in Turkey, and a real cult figure for kind of Turkish fans. It looks like a player who can score goals. Obviously, we saw it away at Anfield. I remember watching him. I was there in the away ends. Looked brilliant. Like, genuinely looked like a very good player, but it was just so blighted last season by injury. And there were reports in the media, in the Turkish media in the last week or so, that Ferdy Kadioglu is likely to go out on loan next season. To me, this seems quite a shocking development, just in the sense that it really felt like he would have been a useful player for Brighton's kind of starting 11 squad next season, particularly if we're going to move into a back three under this kind of new system that it seems like Hurzeler is going to try and play. I think this pre-season's going to be massive for him. There were reports that kind of 16 clubs are interested in him. I'd be really interested to know who they are. I imagine a lot of them are in the Premier League as well. I would be really surprised if we didn't find a place for him in our squad next season. When I look at those photos of him in pre-season, my one concern is obviously he had that toe injury which kept him out for so long, ended up ending his season. And you watch, there's a photo of him kind of doing some kind of tests with the strength and conditioning coach, and he's like balancing with a ball in his hand and stuff. And you look at his toe, you look at his foot, and it's still really, really... It's probably not swollen, but I don't know what it is. There's like a massive lump in his toe still, which makes me feel a little bit concerned about how fit he maybe is, whether this injury genuinely has been something which he's been able to push through and get to the other side on just yet. Are we still going to be waiting a little bit longer to see the best of him? But I think for him, he needs to have a brilliant pre-season, I think, to convince Fabian Hürzeler that he's a player who he wants to use going into next season, which seems mad to me because I'd have thought kind of stylistically and formation-wise he'd be perfect. But according to the reports, it sounds like he's a player. This article in the Turkish media was essentially saying that Fabian Hürzeler would be happy for him to go out on loan. So I think for me, this pre-season is going to be absolutely huge for him. will he play in some of the games? You'd imagine early doors he will get an opportunity if he's fit, with lots of players being out, not reporting back immediately. So for him, it's a huge couple of weeks. And I thought just seeing that photo of him in the gym, seeing that big bulge on his foot, and then seeing the reports around his kind of future, it really made me wonder what on earth's going to happen. And I do think he's going to have to impress quickly if he wants to kind of stake his claim in the side. I know it sounds very harsh. He's a player who I would slot him in at like right wing back immediately next season and say to him, look, you are going to be with Jack Hinshelwood fighting out week in and week out for that right wing back slot. But clearly things are a little bit different. And I do think that in reality, he's going to have to fight for his place this pre-season. It's going to be pretty big for him. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know what you think as well. Secondly, we've seen our brand new strikers report into pre-season training. We've seen Stefanos, Tzimas, and we've also seen Charalampos, Kostoulas report back for pre-season as well. Looking in very good nick, both of them. You see them in the photos, looking very strong, looking very physical. Interestingly, though, I want to talk this pre-season around where we're going to be looking at in terms of the strikers. Evan Ferguson reporting back for pre-season with the Albion alongside Danny Welbeck. The club putting quite a few posts up around Danny Welbeck and his return this pre-season. 18th season in professional football for Danny Welbeck. He's looking in brilliant nick for someone in his now early 30s, and someone who I think you've got to argue goes into the start of the season as our number one first choice striker still. But I think just below him, this pre-season is going to be huge for obviously Tzimas, Kostoulas, but also Ferguson. We've seen Ferguson report back. We've seen the photos of him join the squad, and I think he's going to have to do a lot to impress. For me, I don't really know where his future lies. I would love there to be a situation where he remains at the club and we keep him as ultimately as a first choice striker. I love Evan Ferguson. I think he's got everything that it takes to become a top class Premier League striker. When we saw him burst on the scene at like 16, 17, 18 years old, with the physicality, the build, the gait that he has and his ability to score goals so instinctively. There are a couple of those goals. I remember there was one at Forest away he scored. So instinctual, and you can just tell he's got that touch of class as a striker. But he has struggled. He's struggled in a Brighton shirt in the last year, 18 months. He struggled with injuries. And obviously that West Ham loan really didn't do much for him as well. And ultimately, in terms of his stock, probably lowered it a little bit in terms of being able to get back in this Brighton side. Brighton obviously spending decent money on two strikers or two forwards at least. I don't know. I think this pre-season there will be an opportunity for him to play a couple of games. Whether he'll be getting full 90 minutes, whether he'll be starting, up front as the first choice option this pre-season, I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see Danny Welbeck in the games starting as our main option. I think a lot of the games, it sounds like, are going to be behind closed doors. There'll be a couple behind closed doors before we obviously have the Southampton and the Wolfsburg game. But for me, I think I don't know. I think Evan Ferguson's got a lot to prove in this next few weeks. Can he come back in this pre-season and show that he's really sharp? Can he come back and show that he's ready to fight in the Premier League? Can he show kind of who's boss to these two other young strikers that are coming in at a similar age with similar hype around them? If you think comparatively, they're like 17, 18-year-olds as he is, or, was when he was so brilliant for us about 18 months ago. They're all kind of at the same level, and it kind of feels like who's going to stick the head above the parapet and impress most this pre-season. I think any chance Ferguson's going to get this pre-season, he's going to have to really pull it out the bag, because I almost just see a championship loan coming his way, if not. So that was one thing I thought in terms of seeing players report. When I saw him report, it just made me think, God, you've got a lot to do this pre-season to kind of fight your way, because you've got Kostoulas reporting, looking brilliant. Tzimas, they're both looking strong. They both look really lean. They both just look like ballers. I know that's not much of a kind of, qualification, but it just kind of starkly reminded me of the challenge that I think Ferguson has in this next kind of 4 or 5 weeks or so before the season starts properly, and getting his place back. Otherwise, I think it is a championship loan. Right, let's move on. Another person who I saw a report, which I thought was really interesting, and I'm really excited to see, was Malik Yankule. Obviously, been out on loan last season in Austria, but we saw him last summer in the Japan tour after we'd signed him. We saw him essentially play throughout pre-season, not literally every game, but kind of pretty much every game. He at least featured in most games. And in the Japan tour, I thought he looked really good. And I felt like he was a player who might have got an opportunity last season. But I guess the trouble was we obviously had Baleba, who was going into his second season. We knew he was going to become the main man last season. And Yasin Ayari also performed very well in that Japan tour. And I think the plan was always with Malik Yalkule to buy him and then send him out on loan immediately. I think maybe a spanner was thrown in the works with the fact that in that preseason he performed really well. And, ideally maybe Hurzeler as well as, because I think Hurzeler made a decision on Ayari last preseason, and there was a chance he might have gone out on loan if Hurzeler hadn't fancied him. But it felt like he probably would have liked to have done that with Yalkule based on the amount that he was playing in pre-season in Japan last year. But I think the club kind of stuck to their plan, as they do so often with young players, in terms of letting them have that development pathway, sticking to it. We saw it with Ben White going on like 4 loans before he made it into the Brighton side and obviously went into great things. I think this pre-season could be a massive opportunity for him. Brighton, though, with so many central midfielders, one thing I will say is that if you've got players like Matt Weaver reporting in a little bit late, Jack Hinshelwood reporting in a little bit later, it probably is quite a good opportunity for Yalkule, who will be able to have a week, 10 days, however long it is, impressing Fabian Hürzeler. I would love to see him in the Brighton side next season. He looks like a player who is absolutely ready to step up. Impressing in the Champions League, obviously we saw that last season, alongside Kjell Sherpen as well, obviously a Brighton player. I don't know, I think he does have a big opportunity. And I think it's very likely we'll see him go out on loan again. I think that absolutely is a possibility, but I think he's got an opportunity now to really grasp this pre-season. If he can take it by the scruff of the neck, I think he can get into the Brighton side next season, or at least be in that squad, because whilst the midfield, we do have a lot of options, I think decisions are going to have to be made on some players. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did see like a... I don't know. I just think basically what I'm trying to say is I think there's a real opportunity there for him to kind of try and cement his place, at least in this Brighton squad, because we've got a squad that needs trimming. And if he doesn't, I think we might see him sent out on loan. We might see a lot of players moved on who we kind of might not think, oh my God, that's really harsh. And that's why I kind of move on to my second point. You see my fourth point, which is you see players like Andrew Moran reporting. You see players like Jeremy Sarmiento reporting. Facundo Buonanotte, less so. But these players, I think they're going to be the players who, I'm watching them and it kind of just evokes memories of like I feel like I've seen this so many times before. These guys come to pre-season like 4 years in a row. I've seen these guys and they don't really get in the Brighton side. And whilst it's great to see Andrew Moran on the grass, it's great to see, Jeremy Sarmiento on the grass. Ultimately, I think this is the summer where, unless they do something mad in this pre-season, I think that is their future tied up. I think a championship permanent move is probably their future. I think maybe Sarmiento probably can get a Premier League move, go back to Burnley or something like that on a permanent deal. But I think Brighton are going to have to be quite ruthless this summer in terms of getting rid of players. And it's, I thought Moran last year in Japan looked really, really good. However, the trouble is like, there are so many young players now for Brighton. There's so many academy players. There's so many players in that squad. We've got a massive actual Premier League squad. And now with the players that we've brought in as well, like signing 4, 5, 6 players already this summer, the chances are we're going to sign at least probably one more before the end of the window. I think these guys are going to have to go. And it's a shame because, Sarmiento has shown in flashes that he can be an absolutely brilliant player. But at the end of the day, is he going to get that opportunity this pre-season? I think he is just there to make up the numbers now while we're waiting for internationals to come back. Because I think probably in the last 2-3 years, the quality level of our depth squad has gone up quite a bit. I think whilst you could maybe make the argument that our best ever squad was 22-23, I think now the depth that we have is really quite special. You think about that midfield, you think about our attack. Even now with our defence, with the additions we've brought in, we are really, really deep. Players like Aaron Cashin, I think are going to struggle to impress this preseason. I think they're going to struggle to even get the minutes this preseason. Cashin, Sarmiento, Buonanotte, I think, is a bit of a different one. For me, I would love to have him in the side this season, but I think purely from a numbers perspective, we're going to see him go out on loan again next season. Brighton were talking about giving him a Premier League loan again, a Championship loan. The reports from The Athletic is that that's what the club want to do in order for him to qualify as a homegrown player. I guess it's to do with how many years you I think it's something to do with like how many years you play in either an English academy or in English football kind of before a certain age. And with us signing him at 17 years old, playing him quite a lot in the Premier League, him obviously going to get Premier League minutes with Leicester, I think Brighton are looking to try and get him another loan so that he can qualify as a homegrown player, obviously increasing his value massively in that sense as well, but also providing himself with more of an asset to Brighton and ultimately in turn becoming a better player. After seeing him for Leicester last season, I'd have loved to have seen him this season in a Brighton shirt. However, I actually do think with the depth of our squad, and particularly the depth of our attack, Rutter, Minteh, March, Mitoma, Watson, Kostoulas, Tzimas, Ferguson, Welbeck, the list goes on. Gruder, we've got so many options in that attack, and I think ultimately players like Sarmiento, Moran, we're probably going to see them sold. Cash in on loan, I think, is probably one that we're going to see. And Buonanotte loan as well. In terms of cash in, I talk about that centre-back situation. Obviously, we've seen Adam Webster, Lewis Dunk report back. We've seen Olivier Boscagli report back. We've not seen Diego Coppola report. Erin Cashin is back as well. We've not seen Igor, at least. Oh, no, we have seen Igor. Pardon me, Igor is back. So we've got a lot of our centre-back options back, essentially apart from Diego Coppola. And it's going to be a huge pre-season for all of these centre-halves. Coppola, Boscagli, I think they're guaranteed to be in this squad, obviously, next season. Dunk is going to be part of this squad. I think for Adam Webster and I think for Igor, it is quite a big pre-season for them. I think which one of those two is going to step up the most will have the place in the squad next season. It sounds like, however, with that said, that decisions have been made around Igor. I think ultimately a move to La Liga is looking likely. I think him going to Real Sociedad is looking like that's on the cards. However, I do still think that, Cashin as well, I think, I don't know, if it were me and logically, you'd think we'll sell Igor, we'll keep Webster, we'll keep Dunk, and we'll put Cashin out on loan, and Igor will be sold, Cashin will go on loan, and we'll keep Webster and Dunk and Boscagli and Van Hecke and Coppola. I don't know. You just don't know, do you? We might get into pre-season and Cashin, with us not having all of our centre-back options available, Cashin might be unbelievable. And we think, God, do we on loan this guy? I think Brighton are very good at sticking to the plan, though, and I think maybe in that sense the opportunity for him perhaps isn't there, because I think they will just think, this is how we've mapped it out. This is how we've built the squad. But I think we've got a lot of options, obviously, at centre-back. And I think we're going to have to make a few decisions. We're probably going to see Igor sold. I think we might even see Igor sold before we've even played even a behind closed doors game. Cashin, very likely to be sent out on loan early doors. It's interesting. Obviously, we've seen so many players report back. And when you watch the videos on the Twitter page, on the YouTube channel of Brighton players coming back for pre-season training the first day, you obviously forget that a lot of them are away on international duty, so haven't reported. But you think, oh my God, I forgot about this guy. I completely forgot about Moran. I forgot about Sarmiento to an extent. You see all these players and you think, oh my God, I thought you were dead kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's always a funny reminder, and it really just makes you think, oh my God, our squad is so big. And I think really quickly we're going to have to start making decisions around players. Obviously, we've seen Amario Kozio-Dewberry sent out on loan to Bolton. We've seen Odella Fire sent out to Bolton on a permanent deal. So we've had to kind of cut our losses with him. And I think we're going to have to see probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more players in that kind of mould get sent out on loan or sold, because I think we're coming to a bit of a fork in the road in terms of just recruiting so many players, spending quite a lot of money, increasing our quality of player and depth. It's leaving us a position where we're going to have to make decisions. I'm really excited to see Tommy Watson as well, to be fair. Obviously, we've not really seen any of him in a Brighton shirt yet. I don't think there have been any photos of him in pre-season. Perhaps he's reporting a little bit later. I know, obviously, the playoff final was a few weeks after. Or was it around? I think it actually might have been around the final day, mightn't it? So he's probably had a similar amount of break as the Premier League players that Brighton have already had. So we should be seeing him maybe in the next few days reporting. I think this is going to be a really interesting preseason. Is he going... Well, what role is he going to play? Obviously, Mitoma's not losing his place at left wing, so how are we going to see him fitting in? It's so complicated. We've got so many options, and I'm really, really interested to see how this is going to go. Let me know what you think. What stood out for you in pre-season? When you've seen all the videos, you've seen all the photos. Who has the most to do? What struck you the most? What thoughts has it evoked for you? Has it made you think, God, we need to get rid of this player, we need to get rid of that player? It's an exciting time, and I think obviously a lot of stories are going to emerge over the next few weeks, over the next few days. We're going to hear stories about the games played behind closed doors. We're going to get sights of the new signings actually coming in and properly reporting. And we'll probably get a bit of an idea of how we're looking to line up. It's going to be very exciting. I hope we're going to be able to have some games that are played behind closed doors at least streamed, because surely the only games on option for us aren't just going to be the Southampton away game and the Wolfsburg at home game. You feel like usually you have like a few more games other than that fans can actually watch. So I'm hoping we're going to be able to see a little bit more. I'm very excited though. We know it's the start of the season now. We know there's a lot to play for. We know there's so many kind of options for players, and I think it's all very complicated. And I think these next few weeks we're going to see a lot more clarity around who's part of the plans and who isn't. So I'm very excited to see that. As always, if you've got this far in the video, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong here? What do you think pre-season is looking like? What stood out for you in terms of what we've seen from the club and what they've put out? Thank you so much. I lost my trail of thought there completely. I feel like my head's kind of drifting off into a whole new world now. As I think about all the players that we've got today, it's freaking me out. Right, well, thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the comment button. Oh my God, I'm butchering this. I will see you on the next one. And as always, up the Albion. Oh my God, I'm having a shambles.